Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line A Founder's Life, and you'll receive preferred pricing. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Rick Beyer. Rick, thank you for joining us. Would you like to kick things off by introducing yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm a man of God. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm a serial not only entrepreneur and founder, but also a leader. I'm the CEO of EngageWellness.org. I'm also the COO of OnePacificFS.com. So in both of those roles, I'll explain in just a moment here what that means. But I wear several different hats, but I think we all do as leaders and entrepreneurs.
Definitely. So talk to us a little bit about the journey that got you to where you are today, and then what your businesses are doing for your customers today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for this again, Leo, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone, whoever's listening or watching this. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I hate to date stamp things, but in this week of Holy Week, which, is upon us, this has entirely been a reflective week and also a very intentional week. So a little bit about my journey. I grew up as a modest middle-aged kid in northern Wisconsin. Both my parents were school teachers, and I was blessed to be both gifted academically, musically, in film, as well as I love people. And I love coaching, and I love the process of coaching people. Upon the conclusion, I went to undergraduate school. I studied economics and business with an engineering emphasis. So I know that sounds like a broad array, but it'll provide a pretty nice landscape as to how I got to where I'm at today. So I got my start in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and I worked for Daimler. Daimler is the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, as well as Daimler passenger trucks and commercial vehicles. And I got the dream job I always wanted at 20 years old. And what I mean by that is I always wanted to buy and sell companies. I wanted to design processes. And more importantly, I loved people. And I got that opportunity. So when Daimler identified Freightliner as an acquisition, Freightliner being the largest commercial vehicles manufacturer here domestically, they decided they were going to purchase that brand. And I was tasked with the assignment of converging, consolidating, and eventually creating a world-class manufacturing facility of all places in Charleston, South Carolina. So take a boy from the northern Midwest and put him in the deep South. It was a great opportunity. We ended up buying 7 different emergency vehicle manufacturers across the nation, from Wyoming to Oklahoma to upstate New York to Wisconsin to Florida. And we brought them all together under one roof in Charleston, South Carolina. What was neat about this opportunity is during the same time, Freightliner had just purchased Sterling, which was the largest commercial vehicles manufacturer in Canada, and they had built a brand new facility in South Carolina. And unfortunately, that wasn't the right fit for them. So we literally got to move into a brand new facility with 1 million square foot under roof. The floor was so clean you could eat off it, and we got a chance to build these vehicles out of Charleston. So we consolidated these manufacturers, we brought them all together, and we started building emergency vehicles in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, what I underestimated, because I was in my early 20s, and I was the least tenured of any of the executives around the table, is the idea that people would move from those places I mentioned, i.e. Wyoming and Oklahoma and upstate New York, to Charleston, South Carolina, to help us deploy and build and consolidate these manufacturers. What I found quickly is most people didn't go to work because they were passionate about what they were doing at work. Work and their occupation was an extension of their life and their lifestyles. These were men and women who loved hunting and fishing at 3:00 in the afternoon and had no problems getting up early because they were farm kids or they were industrial type folks that were very good mechanically with their hands. They were wildly intelligent. But the idea of them uprooting their families, leaving, and then coming to help us in South Carolina wasn't exactly in their wheelhouse. What we needed to do was pivot, transition, and create procedures which were based on the ISO 9000 standard to allow anyone. And we were very blessed in Charleston, South Carolina, because they had just closed a large naval shipyard in Charleston. So we had a ton of skilled labor, and we needed to teach them how to make emergency vehicles. So we did that. And we did that at the highest level. And that brand eventually became American LaFrance, which is the oldest emergency vehicles manufacturing brand in America. So we did that. And then part B of that is as we were successful there, I was also empowered to work with another small little company that is now a household name called Sprinter. Sprinter was a Mercedes-Benz commercial vehicle that had never seen the sight of the U.S. It looked odd. It was narrow. It was tall. It was designed with really a European chassis. And what we decided to do was to make 50 of these Sprinters into four-wheel drive ambulances that we eventually used at the 2000 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City under the tutelage of Mitt Romney at the time. So I got a ton of exposure early in my career in working with people that were, one, very influential, two, very successful, three is engineering innovation at the highest level in that particular sector. So we did that. That turned out, obviously, in hindsight, to be a tremendous success. Sprinter is a household name. Every RV, camper, HVAC truck you see running around town, generally speaking, they're built on Sprinters, primarily because Ford and Econoline and all these other folks that were making those types of vehicles were squeezed out of the market. Freightliner turned out to be a huge juggernaut, a huge success. The only blemish in the career was the acquisition of Chrysler, which didn't work out as well for Mercedes-Benz the way they thought it would. Fast forward, I did this at the highest level for 6 years and I enjoyed it tremendously. But what I found was it really was a thankless business. It was always about the next opportunity, the next deal, the next journey that they would be on. And unfortunately, those were the biggest deals that have been done in modern day history in that sector. No one else has done an acquisition or a consolidation like that since then. So I decided to retool. I knew I wanted to call Arizona home, specifically Scottsdale, Arizona home. I was then already with my now wife of 28 years, Nicole, and we decided to call Scottsdale home. So I literally picked up cold out of Charleston, came to Scottsdale, and I knew no one. I mean, we're talking no one. I knew my now future in-laws, but other than that, that was it. So I started cold in financial services. And when I say cold, we're talking like Yellow Pages cold. And I interviewed with a million different companies, some of the biggest wirehouses and insurance companies, and eventually landed with one particular insurance company that did a couple of things for me very early in my career. One is taught me the value of consistency, which is you can afford to have very few bad days in business. And you don't need a lot of miraculous days, but that commitment to consistency is going to be critical if you're going to scale this business. Two is me being a process and an engineer type person. I knew that delivering a client experience based on manufactured product, because we weren't making anything, right? We're pulling insurance policies and mutual funds and different retirement planning strategies and estate strategies, all of these off the shelf. So we're not manufacturing anything, but we're creating this Jackson Pollock of financial solutions in that landscape. And what I found very quickly is the more I did, the more successful we became, the more people we needed in the process, the more specialty services we needed to have. And as we worked with higher profile, both clients and prospects, obviously that dictated our top line revenue, right? So I could work with school teachers all day long and there's nothing wrong with them. It's one of the most noble professions in the world. And I just had shared my history with you and my affection and love towards that profession. But it wasn't going to get us to be a scalable business. Those were going to be white collar attorneys, doctors, physicians, people that were in M&A, small business owners that had top line revenue of a 7, 8, sometimes a 9-digit number that had real problems that we could solve because already the experience that I had had at the largest corporate level was so easy to apply in a micro level. So we scaled that practice from literally zero to becoming one of the largest financial services practices within 15 years. And again, that was from scratch. Now, the other thing that we had working for us is we had great tailwinds because like Las Vegas, the Phoenix metropolitan area had the highest influx of new population. So in business and as a business owner and as a leader, whether you're in athletics, sports, or business, the best thing can ever happen is when the demand is higher than the supply and you're on the supply side, then all it does is become a function of scale. How quickly can you get to market? How consistently can you deliver? And are you able to continue to surround yourself with wonderful people? And I'm going to keep coming back to that theme of people. So we did that. I eventually sold that firm to another insurance company. We built it all over again, twice the size in a third of the time. Why? Because we were just frankly more experienced. And now I'm 20 years in my tenure. I knew what I knew. I had relationship equity, and it was very easy to do that. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? After 2 decades of doing this at the highest level, I want to continue to focus on my family. I have 5 children. I want to focus on being a coach on the baseball field. I want to be present at school. And in order to do that, I need to slow down as a human being. So from there, I actually went into business with several of my clients, and we actually went into my first passion, which was always film and music. So we did that, but there was always this tugging on my heart. And I had several professionals call me and say, if you ever want to come back again, we'd love to have you back because we'd love to scale something in Scottsdale again. It's a huge market. It's virtually untapped. A lot of advisors come from outside of the Scottsdale market to work in this marketplace because it just doesn't have a great local presence. You guys killed it, but you barely dented the market. You know what I'm saying? So eventually I aligned with what would be viewed as my competitors. So I had created a lot of relationship equity, not just amongst our clients, but also our competitors in the marketplace. And we built a new firm called OnePacificFS.com, where we took all tenured professionals that had been through that process, that had built huge firms, either on an insurance chassis with a large insurance company or in a wirehouse, and wanted to deliver a much more heightened client experience. Now, there was a caveat to this. I had always had very intimate conversations with my clients about what happens if you die too soon, live too long, become disabled, need long-term care, or outlive your assets. And if any of those things happen, I can make you bulletproof that should those things happen, we can defend against this. And if everything works out perfectly and you accumulate more wealth than you ever dreamed, and most business owners typically do, then are you concerned about legacy, estate planning, generational wealth, giving back to your philanthropic causes, and start having that conversation? The reason I share that fun fact with you is it also changed my philosophy because I spent a lot of time on the defensive side of the equation, both in my previous life and what happens if, and especially working for a German-based company. They are notorious for that, which is this cannot break. Show me 7 ways that this will not break, and we'll decide that, right? So I loved that part of it. And I certainly found a lot of purpose from that and saw a lot of those promises kept when things did happen. But if I was going to leave my legacy on the industry, I really wanted to focus on wellness. What if it does work out? What if we could get ahead of the curve? What if we could promote health and not sickness? And this isn't a political statement, us versus the insurance companies, healthcare versus big pharma, doctors versus hospitals. It's nothing like that. It just says is that if you understand the premise of behavioral science, which is what financial planning is for anyone, it's not X's and O's. It's really not. It's a behavioral science that makes a commitment to sacrificing something today for something in the future. There's only 2 types of people in this world. There's savers and there's spenders. Okay? It works the same way in health. There's people that are hoping not to get sick and are not willing to take care of themselves or change their behavior. My brother's an ER doc. He'll tell you all the time. He is what's called the boomerang patient. It's the one that says, don't eat fatty foods. You will end up on the table again with a heart attack. And they'll do it anyhow. You have the other people that make a conscious commitment to change their behavior and choose not to be those people. So I wanted to be on the forefront of wellness and helping employers understand that based on the Affordable Care Act that got buried in Obamacare. And again, that's not a political statement. It's what it's called. And Access for All and the exchange, that in that legislation was a very important statute that both was reliant upon tax and wellness that said if an employer offers a wellness plan, the federal government will give them significant tax savings to encourage those behaviors of going to a gym and buckling your seatbelt and not texting and driving or drinking and driving and committing to seeing a doctor once a year and going to get your eyes checked and going to see a dentist. We'll compensate you. We'll actually give you some FICA savings to the tune of around $700 per employee per year to just encourage that behavior. So that has been, in addition to what I've always done to build a financial services practice and have those important conversations, my real crusade is helping employers and employees generationally break the behavioral gap that exists between sickness and wellness. And I know we can't do it in one generation, but maybe, just maybe, we can right the ship for generations to come so that longevity really is on our side, that there is a focus on that and there is a behavioral shift. So that's my journey.
Great journey, and thank you for sharing. And you sort of pivoted and then really sort of have grown with that. Talk to us about what family looks like for you.
Absolutely. So family is at the core of me. My family starts with God first. And then again, sometimes it's not popular, but it's okay. My belief isn't just in a higher being, that my existence exists because of something else or a power that's higher than that. My family is critical. As I mentioned, I've been with my wife now for 28 years, going on 29 this summer. We have 5 amazing kids, all young still, ages 8 through 15. So we're in the throes of it. Got a couple of girls on the bookend, some boys in between. They're amazing. And I love being present with them because I had a very important mentor early in my life that said, as a father, we know you can be successful. You have a willingness to want to provide and protect, but there's no substitute for quality time. Meaning, you can go on these big trips and you can have a lot of great experiences, but what really matters to your kids, what will really be memorable for them is the quantity of time that you spent with them. So I take it to my very core that my balance in life, the reason I built the businesses that I have and the structure that I have allows not only me, but everyone that's a partner with our company to be able to have that quantity of time with their families. So be high achievers when they're on and they're in pocket and in the office and doing the work that they're supposed to do, but then have the ability to unplug, to not have to look at their phones, to not have to respond to a text while they're with their families, while they're on vacation, whatever the case may be, so that they can have that quantity of time, because those memories and that time capsule is irreplaceable for me. It's a non-negotiable. We've got 2 dogs as well. We've got a nice life. All my kids are awesome. They play baseball, they dance, pre-professionally in ballet. It's a lot of fun. And I've had a very blessed life, but I've got great kids. And it's really just a byproduct of, 1, they got an awesome mom. 2 is we're there with them, not as a crutch, but someone that's there as a coach, a shoulder to lean on, someone to cry on, someone to bounce something off of, and then let them run because the sky's the limit for them.
The only slight thing I'd say is I believe it's more about the quality rather than the quantity, about being truly present. So, and I do, by the way, I don't completely switch off. But when I'm with my kids, I'm present for them. I might go do some work in an evening in the morning, and they know that, and they are fine with that, and they appreciate it, and it's a good work ethic for them. But when I'm with them, I'm present. I think that's what's important. And talk to us about how health looks for you.
Sure. So I'll dovetail into health there because I'm in total congruence with you too. And if I sound convicted or resolute about my purpose, it's because I am. My purpose doesn't have to be anybody else's. It's just what works for me. So as we transition into health, health is extremely important. I am in a profession that can be laced with distractions. And what I mean by that is there can always be an excuse not to go to the gym, not to work out, to not take care of yourself, to go to big steak dinners, to overindulge and celebrate and do things like that. And what I've found is by creating an environment and a system and then surrounding yourself with people that have similar life goals has been really helpful for me. So I do my walks. I could be doing this podcast right now while walking. I love doing that, putting the earbuds in and just going through a walk. I live in this beautiful desert. Like, it's awesome to do that. I love to run. I love to coach baseball. I love to shag balls. I'm not the guy standing behind on Blake just hitting balls all day long. All of that stuff keeps me healthy. But then I'm also very aware of what I take into my system. So fuel is our nourishment, and food is our fuel that nourishes our soul. I grew up in the Midwest. Nobody loves steak and potatoes and a Friday night fish fry more than this guy. All right. The challenge is it can't be my diet every day. And in a perfect world where health were not an issue, it certainly would be because I love that diet. However, I am also very aware too that my stamina and my energy and my well-rested sleep, okay, and that took me a long time. That wasn't an epiphany. When I was in my 20s and 30s and when more time was the only way to get more money, I always traded sleep for more productivity. And what I found was, as I reflected and worked with other professionals like yourself, Leo, and other people that are in this, is that your energy really is a bell curve at the end of the day. And you can end up on the backside of that bell curve where you think you're doing more and you think you're buying, quote unquote, more capacity, but your effectiveness and your efficiency is going down. I don't know that in my lifetime as a mortal human being, I'll ever get that figured out where I can just live on the top of the bell curve all day long. It's a constant reminder for me to try to stay somewhere close to that, in that range, because certainly all of us have that inner voice that says when we get outside of that range, we may not say it, but we certainly can feel it. And like I said, a couple things get traded off right away. One is maybe our waistline increase and we don't like that. Two is maybe our stamina goes down and we don't like that. Three is we sacrifice sleep and we recognize that. Or we're the sick guy, right? Like, it's an annoyance for me when people call in sick. I realize it's part of the human condition. But on the other hand, especially coming out of my initial background, which is in manufacturing, is it's entirely disruptive to the process to have human beings that need to do manual work that are not showing up for work that day. So I'm probably a little bit more sensitive to it than not. I'm also with a ton of quote unquote salespeople all day long that have to be at the best of their game because, again, they can't afford a bad day. A bad day kills momentum. Momentum kills a deal. A deal doesn't get closed because of a sick day. They were out of pocket. They didn't respond to an email timely enough. They didn't prospect the way they should have. They weren't as present as they could have been. So that focus on health is really important to me, Leo.
I love that. And what do you like to do for fun?
I think I outlined everything. I mean, I love music. I should have become a music major. In a perfect world, I would have been part of the wrecking crew at Capitol Records and eventually got picked up to go on a tour like a Glenn Campbell type that did for the Beach Boys back in the day, right? That was my dream at some point, but I did get some good advice from my father, which says, don't make your hobby your profession. Now, I don't know if I subscribe to that anymore because I've got kids that want to dance professionally and I think they can do that. And I got kids that want to play baseball professionally and I think they're going to do that. I think you can have that blend. But my point is, I love music. I love film. I'm the type of guy that can watch the same film over and over again 100 times and it not get old. I love being present with my kids and I love new experiences. Again, growing up in the Midwest in a lower to middle income family, we didn't get a chance to travel. Any traveling we did was looking out the side window that was by car. We went to San Francisco one time, and that was just mind-blowing. We went to Florida one time to Disney World, and that was mind-blowing. My wife and I made a commitment very early that we were going to take our kids across the world. And we've been blessed to be able to do that. And there's no particular place we like to go other than we love to travel. We love everything about Europe. We went during COVID when things were opened up. We love spending time in the south of France, through Italy, through England, through France, through that whole region. Greece is awesome. And we've seen most of the states in the United States, which is a lot of fun. We still have some bucket list stuff that we want to do in Asia and other places. I'd love to go to Russia. There's certain places in Africa that I would love to frequent as well, too. And again, as my kids get older and as this world becomes more safe, and I believe that is indeed, we're moving that direction, I'd feel much more confident about doing that, but we love to travel. So that's how I spend my time. That's what I love to do.
Nice. And it sounds like you've got a good balance and you have worked out where your sort of balance sits. What for you would you say has been a pivotal moment? And it sounds like you probably actually mentioned it already, but what would you say has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Well, there's been a couple. One is always trusting your heart. When I got my start in my professional career, my wife was a journalist. She was on air as a news anchor and reporter. I was in M&A and we traveled every weekend. And the blessed part that I had about that is we didn't have a family yet at that point. So we were able to see each other every weekend or every other weekend. And because of how the compensation structure worked back in those days, if you didn't own a home, whatever you put in the system as home was your home for the weekend. So we got to fly all over the place. Okay. Having that focus on love, knowing that my existence and my headstone someday should not say he was a hard worker. I really want, just like my LinkedIn profile says, he's a man of God, he's a husband, he's a father, and he's the CEO, which is the chief energy officer. He brings his best each day. The other part is knowing that there's external factors that I can't control. I shared with you, I did pivot off the M&A world in automotive, primarily because 9/11 hit and that industry got decimated. External factors will change sometimes how that works. The other thing too is environmental factors change. And what I mean by that is not the environment, but leadership will change at companies. And you have to decide whether you want to align yourself with certain strategic partners or not. And if you find that they're taking energy and not giving, then you have to also recognize that too. And that's hard because you put in all this time. It's like building a house and getting to the point where you put on the last piece of trim and you don't like the floor plan. That's a horrible feeling. You put in all this time and all this effort, and you blew it. You missed an outlet that should have been right behind the sofa or sitting in the floor. And you're like, well, how are we going to plug in the lights? I don't know. It got missed. Well, what are you going to do? Bust up the whole floor, bust up all the, travertine and the beautiful marble you put down? No, you're just going to deal with it and run an extension cord. And then you're going to trip over that extension cord in the middle of the night trying to get a glass of water or something like that. And it's going to frustrate you every single time. My point is you can't control all of those things, but what you can control is your decisions and your time. And I've been very blessed that a lot of my fate has been decided for me in some ways. If you've learned anything in just the brief time that we spent together, whatever direction I go, I'm going 100 miles an hour. So it's hard to get me off course. The only way to do that is to literally sideswipe me, okay, to force me to change course. And I've been very, very, very fortunate that either the environment, my spouse, my respected business partners around me were honest enough with me to say, you know what, I think we should change course. And that's happened in my behavioral health. It's happened in my financial health. It's happened in my family. It's how I arrived at some of these rules or some of these conditions of the balance between family and health and spiritual awakeness. Thank God I had people around me that I trusted enough to actually listen to them. Because the challenge is too, as a type A driver, we pride ourselves in not listening to or being distracted or listening to distractions or pundits, right? On the other hand, it could also be what is our biggest strength can be our biggest weakness, which is that we don't listen. I was listening to a modern day president that said, we're staying the course regardless. I appreciate how resolute that statement was. On the other hand, there is some danger in just staying the course and not changing and deviating. So I don't know that there was like truly a point other than I was very cognizant of what I put in my body, my behaviors, how I manage my self-care, my health, and that I was coachable enough to listen to people when they had something to share, to actually listen as opposed to be dismissive or put them on the sidelines because I was so resolute about where I was going.
And what's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Do exactly what I told you just not to do. Don't stop. If you believe, you'll be believed. I'm going to say it again. It's that important. If you believe, you'll be believed. This was as recent as yesterday. I was sitting with a client and I was doing what's called joint work. So we were collaborating on this solution for a client. And my gut believed we should have taken a slightly different approach to this particular client. However, the person that prepared the solution believed in the solution. And it took a tremendous amount of both patience, self-awareness, and temperament to not interrupt that. Even though I may have thought it should have gone differently, what I recognize is if they believed in the solution and weren't deviated from that, they were going to deliver on that. And sure enough, they did. But I could have come back and said, you know what? I think we should probably consider this. Let's at the 99th hour kind of switch this around and get it going and then present it that way. Going back to entrepreneurship, it's hard to do something new that no one's done before, either in a market. Maybe it has been done before, but never there. Staying steadfast is the key to being resolute. And as an entrepreneur, cash flows are going to be an issue. Capital may be an issue. Time may be an issue. There may be other barriers to banking or access to other types of resources. Just stay focused. Stay the course and see it all the way through. This is the worst time to be a ping pong ball, right? Or a foosball table, any of that, right? Just go and then pick your head up and be righteous enough about yourself to put that down on a piece of paper that says, regardless of what happens in the next 60 days, I'm not going to look over my shoulder and I'm not going to look in the rearview mirror. I'm only going to move forward. And after that 60 days or 90 days or a year or 2 years, am I going to pick my head up and assess? Until then, I have no energy for distraction. I have to stay focused on the destination and the goal.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing all of that, Rick. And thank you for joining us today. And how can people find you?
So a couple ways. One is the name of our company is engagewellness.org. Any company that has any number of employees that offers health insurance is eligible for that tax benefit that I discussed. It's the easiest thing to implement. We handle everything. Engagewellness.org is where to find us. You can email me directly at rick@engagewellness.org. As well as for those entrepreneurs that are starting to make money and that are assessing risk and have other people that are responsible for them, call us, okay? Rick Beyer, so R Beyer at onepacificfs.com. onepacificfs.com. That's where you can find us. We're here to help. I'd love to help. I consider my profession a privilege. I have this servant mentality, which I hopefully has bubbled up in our time together this morning. We're here to help. We've got a great group of people. We've got awesome solutions. And as you can see, our passion, we love what we do and we're here to help.
Well, thank you. And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.